Yeah, so as a group, we are kind of Theravada Buddhist-ish group, very eclectic, and we've been here that's over 11 years now. Been meeting, so yeah, great group, and we have about I don't know 7 8 people online, about 20 people in person today. So yeah, just one thing that came to mind, when we're meditating, we spoke about. Well, I'm going to speak today, just kind of throw the title out on equanimity. I'm going to talk about equanimity today because, especially with the political violence that's ongoing, you know, uh, there's a lot of extremism. This is a lot of extremism that's happening, and equanimity is not only the traditional fruition of the Buddhist practice, but it's also the opposite, of extreme. Right? So equanimity. So speaking of equanimity, and one way we get to equanimity, there's a lot of supports for this, but the main way is through non-grasping mind. So I pointed to this, and this is basically what meditation is all about. Meditation is about noticing what's arising and noticing that we have freedom. Like we don't need to follow what's arising. So something can arise, we can notice that it has arisen. We can, instead of grabbing onto it, we can release it, this non-grasping mind, and bring it back to an anchor of some kind where concentration kind of takes over and kind of holds it down. And it seems kind of, well, I don't know how it might seem. For some people, it could feel, well, like, why are we doing that? For one, if we keep doing that, the mind becomes stable and it feels quite peaceful. There's kind of a bliss aspect sometimes. So we keep, non-grasping, and then the mind becomes very still. But there's more to it than that. There's, like I mentioned, the word freedom. We use this word freedom, or it's also a term liberation. What does this mean? Liberation and freedom means we're not kind of controlled by what's arising. A lot of times we don't even notice that we don't have control. Things arise, we grab onto it. So if a positive thought arises, a pleasant thought, we feel pleasant. If an unpleasant thought arises, we feel unpleasant because we grab onto it. The thought leads to an emotion, leads to a body sensation, just like that, right? But speaking to extremism, a lot of times I speak to just suffering and non-suffering. So if a suffering thought comes by, wouldn't that be nice to be able to hang out with it but not grab it? I could be with you but not follow you. I could notice you. Again, we're not pushing anything away. I can notice you, but I don't need to follow you. So if a mundane kind of not a worrisome thought comes by, who really cares, right? We notice this, it comes by, we don't follow it, we stay with the breath or whatever we're focusing on. No big deal. But what if a suffering thought comes by? Maybe a really strong suffering thought comes by, and we say, okay, I could be with you, but I'm not gonna follow you. This is even, you know, this is good. But speaking to the topic of today of extremism, people, it's crazy. People kill people because they believe a thought. People kill themselves because they believe a thought. People kill lots and lots of people. Like we're looking at Gaza, like what's happening there? Because they believe a thought, right? It's really amazing. Like this power, like this thought has, and we speak in Buddha Dharma truth, according to Buddhism, that is empty of inherent nature. It's like, I could hit you over the head with a Kleenex, and that has more oomph to it than a thought. A thought has no intrinsic qualities at all whatsoever, right? There's nothing there. And it's so powerful. Somebody's going to kill somebody because they believe that thought, because of grasping mind. This thought arises without even mindfulness, like this conscious observing of something. Like this metacognition, like something's here and I know that it's here. So like there's not even that initial noticing that I'm being controlled by this thing that's arising. Usually it happens so habitually, like we don't even pay attention. Like as a population, it just thoughts arise. I like this, I don't like this. We just kind of go along with it. This is who I am, we say, you know. And this is the most damaging thing is we self-identify with this package of belief systems, this package of beliefs that are arising in our head. We actually think that's us. Like I'm my thoughts, I'm my emotions, I'm my body sensations even, you know. It's me. I am my collection of opinions and beliefs. Very dangerous, because if somebody attacks my beliefs, they're not attacking my beliefs, they're attacking me. And this gets really dangerous. And that's where we are. That's where we are. So extremism is dividing. So like the opposite of extreme is, you know, collective. And by nature, and by definition, like this like, extremism is always going to divide. So like look at a political party. If the extreme part of that political party gets elected, there's automatically a division even within that political party, right? Because the collective voice isn't heard, only the extreme part. And because something's so extreme, what's going to be the opposite of that? What's going to meet that? More extreme, right? More extreme. And so there's always like when I see extremism arise, I look at there's already four pieces, right? There's always that extreme, that group is already divided, and then the opposing group is always divided because there's going to be an extreme part of that group too, and maybe there's five pieces, and there's people in the middle, just like being like, what the fuck, like this is all crazy, right? So, but that's where we're at, unfortunately. And the interesting part about extremism is the mind likes it. And the reason why it likes it, I always find that the mind wants truth. You know, the mind is always searching for truth. The mind likes it because it's so clear. It's actually a false clarity. Extremism is a false clarity. In other words, it's very black and white. Like this is good and this is not good. And so it kind of dumbs down truth. Like you're on that side or the other, and they're like that, and this is like this. And so the mind, it's kind of attracted to that. And that's why extremism, there's a popularity to it, because the mind's like, oh, this is very clear. This is just like this and just like that. Now we know truth is the opposite of that. Actual truth is muddy. It's not black and white. Truth is never black and white. Nothing is entirely like this or entirely like that. So it's a little confusing. So people are like, well, that's confusing. If somebody tells me it's just like this and it's just like that, I like that. I don't need to think. They're telling me what to do. Like, oh, it's black and white, just like this. Now, as spiritual seekers, we see this even more clearly because we notice that the closer that we get to truth, the more paradoxical it becomes. Spiritual seekers, we're really we're used to being confused. We're very confused a lot of times, and we're actually going into the confusion. We're actually moving into the confusion, right? The closer you get to truth, the more paradoxical it becomes. Yeah, I was teaching a new class. I started a new class. I teach, you know, a couple of times a year at UCI MBSR classes. And after the first class, this guy, you know, said, I'm going to drop the class. You know, I didn't understand what you're talking about or where you want to go with this or whatever, you know. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, that's normal. And I was like, you know, just, I don't want to, I want to go ahead and do what you want to do. But just so you know, I was speaking because I had to, because it's the first class. So I had to explain a lot of stuff, which I don't like to do. I don't like to talk a lot. I like to sit. But I said everything we spoke about was an invitation to an experience, which we haven't got to yet. Like I'm inviting you to experience this, right? Because the conceptual mind, again, it's very paradoxical. Like I'll give an example of paradox is that in Dharma practice, we think we're striving, like we sit down to meditate, which is a verb, but we're not doing anything. So we're going to do nothing to get somewhere. It's a paradox, right? So don't do anything, right? But you're going to get somewhere by not doing anything, right? So we're used to sitting with this, and then of course when we have ultimate truth and relative truth, like the relative truth is that there's good and bad. Ultimate truth is Buddha nature, that there's a basic goodness in everything. So we're used to this is my point. And I think even bigger than that, being spiritualists is of the spirit, and there's a transcendent quality to that. And there is a motivation to truly not be right, but to really know. So like there's so much confirmation bias happening. Like people just want to read something that confirms where they're already headed. Like just tell me, just to confirm my belief system, please. So we read something, oh, that I knew it. Those damn whatevers, right? I knew it. They're doing it. They're doing it again. But we want to truly know. And to truly know, we need to forget all of that. So one analogy would be software, hardware. So people are debating in extremism now, like debating the mind's software, like this, my belief systems and this belief systems. And in meditation, Dharma practice, we are actually abandoning all of that to see what is beyond all of that, the non-grasping mind. That means all of the stuff you think is good and right and all that stuff, abandoning all of that. Now, oddly enough, without thinking, we still exist, right? Even if we're not like trying to exist, like trying to build up a belief system, or a lot of these things that we point to self or describe ourselves or decide, describe what we believe in. Like even without all that stuff, we actually exist just fine. So we're trying to see, I should say, experience ourselves beyond all of that. And what's really frustrating, it's so frustrating that most people don't want to do that. They don't want to. And so therefore, there's such a small percentage of people that have seen beyond the programming, like our own programming. We're all programmed. So few people have even cared to see beyond that programming, to see the unity that exists, the truth of all truths, that we are all connected and none of us are that stupid programming. And so therefore there's very, very few voices and few day-to-day examples, like people we run to in life, that are embodying that truth of that. Like we're completely beyond that. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, that in some of these conceptual truths, there's an overlap of, like, say, universal love. Like some people are teaching universal love, and that's great. But we have to experience ourselves as that universal love for it to be more powerful. And I think for me, it's very frustrating and it feels overwhelming, because you think, well, there's so much of that other stuff out there. There's so much of that other stuff. How can I make a difference? Or how can even myself like seeing that or becoming that or living as that, how can that make a difference? But you got to think the power of a single being connecting to that truth. We look at Buddha, Christ, Krishna, Muhammad, like all of these amazing beings that have just connected and then taught from that space. And look at the power of that, just one. just one, because it's true, because it's true. And one thing that I've noticed is that there's no pole star, there's very few pole stars of truth where people are just defending their conceptual belief systems. So people will resonate with the truth of all truths. Like little things like, you know, love thy neighbor, love thy enemy. And I read these things and I'm like, that's still true, right? Like love thy enemy and all these things. But people, it still lives on because people see the truth in that. 2,600 years later, 2,000 years later, right? But it's an unpopular one. Like Bob and I were Instagramming about the unpopularity of like love has never been popular. There's a quote, about this. It's not a good marketing thing, or it's not popular like this universal love thing. It's not as popular as it's interesting where people will go to hate and division like that. They'll come together like that. Why don't we just connect with, maybe we see each other's sides or communicate, but again, it's harder work, it's confusing, it's not as clear, right? So as the very few people that are interested in knowing truth and abandoning that, and we've had the opportunity, the rare and precious opportunity, to come in contact with teachings that go beyond the software. It's almost a responsibility for us to take it and harness it and practice it and act from that place, especially in these times, because we can make a difference. Like we can. I think it's a revolutionary act is just to sit and meditate. Like even if you don't, post anything or nothing like that, but just like sitting in your neighborhood and in your community, sitting like this, it's a powerful act. We don't know each other, like a lot of us don't know each other. We don't need to know each other. Look at this. Look how peaceful and calm to come and sit and connect with something beyond all the stuff. It's powerful to do this. And I like to think of it as a responsibility because we've been given access to a teaching like this. Because a lot of people, not only do they not have maybe the motivation or something like this, but not even the connection to it. Like they never even heard meta loving kindness. I think, what if the whole world just said, may all beings be happy and free from suffering all at once? Like, like everyone, like not just the people that think like me, but may all beings everywhere without exception, may they all be happy and free from suffering. Just that. So speaking towards equanimity, a couple words on equanimity within ourselves. I think one important element that we stress so often in Buddhism, this is kind of like our own self-care along the way, which is never forgetting impermanence, because it's so easy for us to say, wow, the world is like this, and it's just moving in the wrong direction. Let's say the catastrophizing mind, this beautiful thing that arises, worry mind. It's so easy to say this, like it's like this. It's, gosh, it's moving like this. Boy, we're really in for it, kind of a thing, right? And that might be true. It also might not be true. And so remembering impermanence, everything's changing all the time. And the only truth is don't know. Just as a reminder all the time, like don't know mind is true. And this helps with the resilience, right? The resilience is that if we make something very concrete, it's like this, and that concreteness, even actually, if you say it either way, like things are going to be great. And if you hold on to that and then it's not, if things turn out not to be so great, then you feel, oh man, not so good. Or things are really, really bad, are going to be really, really bad. And then you're worrying for no reason. So part of our own equanimity is just staying with the truth of impermanence. Things are changing, shifting all the time. We don't know, but one thing that we can do is we could set a good intention, like we talked about in the beginning of the meditation. And so out of that intention, we could act out of that intention, right? We could still do our best, but we live and don't know mind. Like, I don't know. It might turn out good, it might turn out bad, but at least I'm moving in that direction of assisting, compassion, kindness, empathy, all of that. I spoke too long on the first part, so I don't have. I was going to go over the 7 factors. I'll just kind of mention these a little bit, because this is actually kind of the systematic way to equanimity. If we were to progress towards equanimity, the experience of equanimity. So I'll just kind of touch upon the 7 factors of awakening. So for those of you that are not familiar with this list, there's a list of I don't like the word negative mind states or of afflictions, but for the sake of discussion here, when we look into the mind, usually what we find is what's called the 5 hindrances. Real quick, what are the 5 hindrances? Sloth, torpor, sloth and torpor, one thing. Doubt, agitation or worry. Yeah. Huh? Restlessness, which is all the worry too. Yeah.
You want to say aversion yet?
No, not aversion yet. So yeah, aversion. What's the opposite of aversion? Yeah, attachment, right? So attachment, like I want this, or I don't want this. So when our mind goes away in meditation, let's say you're meditating and your mind goes into grasping mind, it's going to go usually to attachment, like I want this. Aversion, I don't want this. Torpor, dullness, like sleepy mind, dull mind. Or the opposite of that, worry, right? Concern or agitated mind. This could be like a racy mind. And then the final one is doubt. And doubt's the worst. Doubt gets us off the cushion. Or anything. These apply to anything. Like, I don't want to go for a run today. I'll go for a run tomorrow. Like doubt, tomorrow will be better, kind of a thing. So we usually, teach these first. I teach, like I say, teach these first, like teach the mindfulness of these, like be mindful of when the mind's doing that, so you could abandon them. So we call it abandoning the unwholesome. And then the second piece is cultivating the wholesome. So that's the 7 factors of awakening. And it's already cool because there's 7 positive qualities and only 5 negative. 7 factors. What are the 7 factors? Anybody? You guys know the negative ones, but not the positive ones. See, this is the problem. That's the problem right there. The first one's mindfulness. It's interesting to note that the other 6 factors, you can have actually too much of them, even though they're positive. You can never have too much mindfulness. Mindfulness is the rudder in the water. It's actually in the middle between, if it was like a timeline, 0 is mindfulness. Like mindfulness takes care of the hindrances and allows you to cultivate the 7 qualities. The 7 qualities, by the way, are our actual inherent mind. The hindrances are a fabricated mind. So in other words, the hindrances are not naturally arising. The 7 factors are naturally arising. In fact, when there's a negation of the hindrances, the 7 factors come into view, right? So just like this, like when the mind is grasping onto something, the moment you notice, oh, the mind has wandered, it's a moment of mindfulness, right? So non-grasping mind, it's mindfulness. Mindfulness leads to what?
Awareness.
You're both kind of right. Yeah. So mindfulness leads to investigation or curiosity, and curiosity leads to energy. And this is the antidote, by the way, to torpor. So these three are the antidote to torpor. If you find a dull mind, if your mind is dull, turn up the volume on mindfulness, which is going to lead to energy, which is going to lead to investigation or curiosity, which is going to lead to energy. Just like something you love. If you love guitar, if somebody who loves guitar, you show that person a guitar and they're like, oh my God, look at that guitar. You see, mindfulness, they got investigation, curiosity, and energy, right? So we could use that with our breath. We could be very curious about the breath in the body, and our energy comes up. Energy leads to what? Eventually, yeah. The energy leads to joy. The energy leads to joy because your focus is getting better. The joy leads to calm. The calm leads to concentration. The concentration leads to equanimity. Right? Now, I've said it in a linear way. It's actually not linear. It's not like we go from the hindrances and then all of a sudden we go. What it is this. I don't really like telling people like memorize this or that. These lists you should, however, memorize because you're using mindfulness to pay attention to them. And the more you tend to the whole list, hindrances and otherwise, the more you cultivate the experience of that in the future. What I mean by that is that a moment of anger leads to another moment of anger. A moment of joy leads to another moment of joy, a moment of calm. And so what you're really doing is using mindfulness to just pay attention to, and therefore abandoning the unwholesome because you're paying attention to the unwholesome has arisen. Just like these negative thoughts that I began with, like these negative thoughts people are having that lead to really drastic actions. What if they abandon those and instead cultivated the mindfulness of calm? The more that we notice calm as naturally arising, then the more we experience that. I was doing a little roundabout after a meditation one time. I led a meditation and I asked, how was that? And people were saying, a bunch of different things. Somebody was saying, I had a really pleasant meditation or this and that. And this one woman said, nothing really happened. And I said, of course, as a Buddhist, I'm like, that's awesome. Like nothing happened, killed it, And but she was saying like it was a negative thing, It's like, oh, nothing happened. I said, well, how's like your life normally? And anyway, long story short, she's very, very stressed out. She's a single mom, 2 jobs, a whole deal. And I was like, wow. And then like during this meditation, there was just not much happening. And she's like, oh yeah. So the negation of, so like that's calm arising, but she couldn't recognize calm when calm was right there. So we could say this in life, like sometimes in life, you're like, oh, I'm really stressed out. Well, what does that mean? Like you're really stressed out, like every single second of no, pay attention. Like not every single moment of every day, but the mind will put us there, So equanimity is really like the path to equanimity is to notice the negative states of mind, the unwholesome, the hindrances, this attachment and aversion, confirmation bias, like attachment, like I want my belief system to be confirmed. I told you, it's one of them. They're bad. I'm good. I'm on the good side, right? Attachment, aversion. And then equanimity is actually not like a state, actually. Equanimity is a non-state. Equanimity is the hardware. Like if you kept letting go of everything over and over again, let's say you go into retreat, you do a 3-month retreat, and you're practicing non-grasping mind the whole time. So letting everything in, letting everything out. So you're not grabbing onto anything. What remains? We could do this experiment with every little meditation that we do, and you do an experiment, which is what remains. When that thought leaves, what remains? When I let go, what remains? When the anger vanishes, what remains? When the joy vanishes, what remains? What remains? As an experience, what remains? We notice equanimity. It's not up, it's not down, it's at ease, right? And it's the one thing that when we're trying to connect to that, it's the one thing that doesn't come or go. And people say, well, what is this Buddha nature or awareness or equanimity or something like this? Well, it's that which doesn't never go away. So in other words, what is impermanent, it can't be that. Whatever's arising, abiding, going away, can't be that, because we're trying to find truth, right? What remains. So this is one way that we could systematically move towards equanimity, right? Abandoning the unwholesome, cultivating through mindfulness the wholesome states of mind. And they're naturally arising all the time. Just one last little thing about the linear aspect. It's just like if you're in meditation, have you guys ever experienced mindfulness in meditation, a moment of mindfulness? Of course. How about a moment of calm? Of course, right? How about a moment of joy? Of course, right? This is nothing like way out there like Buddhas or something. No, how just like a moment of concentration, a moment of I'm here and I know that I'm here. I know it's only a moment. For if you're like me, like the mind is very right, it wants to go everywhere, right? So it's just noticing these things. So maybe we could I like to speak towards antidotes. And so maybe we could speak in smaller groups to the things that help you realize the positive aspects of mind or the practice. Things that help you remember kindness and joy and equanimity and things beyond attachment and aversion and the hindrances. So things that help you, it could be practices, it could be social activities, it could be a sport, it could be this, like what things that you like to do, meditation in general, that helps you move back into a positive state of being. So yeah, maybe three groups of 3 or 4.
Because we have some new people, could you give a
Yes.
explanation, please, of not cross-talking?
Thank you. Yeah. So for safety of the whole group, we asked like no crosstalk. So that means just stay with your own opinion, like your own experience, and not giving other people advice like, well, I do this or I should do this. So like not cross-talking, but just staying with your own experience so everyone can feel safe. Yeah, thank you for the reminder. And then for the people online, just hang in with me and we'll go to another room. Anyone want to, share with the larger group what came up for them?
A lot of us mentioned meta. That was a running theme
Yeah,
in our discussion.
very cool. Meta, some loving kindness practice. We do a lot of that these days.
A lot of mindfulness in our group.
A lot of mindfulness. Yeah. Gratitude. Yep. Came up with our group as well. Yeah.
Nature, as well as creative hobbies, engaging with nature.
Yeah.
Creative hobbies.
Nature and creative hobbies.
Sense, like
What's that again?
Sense.
Oh, sense. Yeah.
Incense.
Yep. Incense, stuff like that.
Can you explain that? Sense?
Incense. Yeah.
Oh,
Like aromatherapy. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Not clinging to the aversion of negative things, but also learning not to cling when things are great. Like, I don't want this to end, and then I'm not present with it. Just kind of trying to enjoy every moment and be present with it. looking at
Yeah.
the river, I know I'm looking at the river.
Right. So non-clinging for good and bad, like just so you could be present with, what is. The breath, yeah, coming into the breath, yeah.
I think Kevin brought up nonverbal communication, and I think that's so under appreciated. That we need to fill the time with something, and just having the time with the sun or time with the sun, just doing something.
Just being, bonding with, yeah, like hanging out, yeah. Just a habit of positive experiences.
Oh, good. Oh, so cute.
Yeah. I think one thing, like listening to all of the different things, is that there's a lot of different things. One thing that kind of came up with our group too is that everyone mentioned some, fantastic things, and from going on retreat for like a week-long retreat to, and that's, if it's accessible, awesome, absolutely amazing, to all of these things. Is why I love group discussions, just bringing in all the wisdom from the group, and this intention of wanting to feel good. I think that's so cool. Like I know it sounds silly, but I think sometimes people don't recognize, via lack of the practice of mindfulness, like, I don't feel good. Like, this doesn't feel good. Like, gossiping doesn't feel good. Actually, if you feel like right speech is all of these things, like, we can just feel into ourselves. Like, when we have wrong speech, for example, it actually doesn't feel good. There's like idea of maybe connecting with somebody, like, oh, da, 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 whatever, but then you feel it, you're like, that doesn't feel good, right? And I think that this idea of wanting to feel good and positive, and bring to this world, however our actions are. So actions have to be, let's say, if you're an activist or something, like, this is a very positive thing if you're fighting for good, but we're fighting for good, bringing what to the table? Like, we're bringing, this aspect of really kindness and compassion for all beings, even the beings on the other side, right? And that takes a lot of mindfulness. And then there might be many different ways that we stay consistent with these staying positive. It might be exercise one day. It might be connecting with friends. It might be music. It might be creativity. It might be, all these different things. It's not just like, oh, I got to sit and meditate for 3 hours a day. That's not, for most of us, that's not a reality. We can't just sit and meditate for, a few hours a day, although that would be awesome. But so I think paying attention to what's available, and acting upon that, and really desiring to feel good. Yeah. Anyone else? We have a couple of minutes left. Sure.
I was mentioning the group about the idea of like coming out of the summer. I don't know if anybody else has this experience, but coming out of the summer, for me, the summer has been sort of the spiritual journey, and coming to the class and everything.
Great.
And my work is sort of September to May. So it's just kind of like I'm feeling like this crossover of events. And you mentioned about gossip, and I went to work this week in an environment where there's just a lot of it, and it's just normal. Like, you just sort of like feel like, okay, that's just what you do. And when I hear you say that, and I come back, I'm like, no, it's not. But it feels like you're like a salmon upstream. Like, now, like I'm fighting an environment that it was my life. It's been my life in many ways. But I'm trying to navigate that. When you're in a world that doesn't feel the way it does here.
Right. And I think, as spiritual seekers, that's life. Like, in general, just because it's a unique perspective, to hold. everything and then turn inward and these types of things, you know? Yeah.
Your story was reminding me of like in my work situation, which I would actually call toxic.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are suffering, and we're trying to figure out how to handle that suffering. And sometimes that does mean gossiping, because it's like, wow, I'm hurting so much. I need to like
Let it out.
let it out.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just I was thinking about that, like what's there, because there has to be a balance too. It's like you, and I appreciated you mentioning when you're doing activist work, you know, how like this practice is like very grounding for me in the activist work that I'm doing, because I felt myself this week very much being very polarized, like full of a lot of like just anger and just, you know, the stuff that's happening in the world is so unjust that, you know, it feels like if I don't say something about that, you know, then I'm complicit in a way.
Right.
So I have to speak up about it, and I have to try to also maintain my own grounding. So that's just something that's swirling in my head. Yeah.
I think we could all, I relate to that too. You know, I think one thing that I like to think of is when we're judging somebody or a group of people, try to word this the right way, it's where it's like, yes, people have some kind of autonomy, like away from their minds, but but not a lot, actually, like we're speaking to. In other words, we could say, you know, this person or group of people needs to do this, but then also with the understanding, like in Buddhism, we just call it ignorance. There's no right or wrong. There's ignorance and wisdom. So people that are ignorant are those that don't have the capacity to see outside of their minds or their belief systems or whatever. So they're acting upon this habitual patterns of the mind, right? So there's a term that Tenzin Chogi, my teacher, uses. There's no bad apples, there's bad barrels, and they're in a bad barrel, you know, and they're not a bad apple, they're in a bad barrel, and they can't see the way out. So we have compassion for them. They're not awakened, like awakened mind. They don't have that. So we can fight against the ignorance, not the person, right? So we're not fighting against a group of people. We're fighting against the ignorance in their mind. Can they awaken to the reality of loving kindness and compassion? And sometimes we can't use explicit loving kindness and compassion to get through to that. For sure, I understand that. There are some ways that we have to act more forcefully to do that, but we're doing it with kindness and compassion in our hearts. And that gets through. And that's the thing that gets through to the masses. Because if we let go of that, people on the fringes can't see the difference. They're seeing hate and hate. Where do I go? Who's right? And then like a Martin Luther King comes through and says, or a Gandhi or something, and they give this example of love against power, and people resonate with the truth that's in all of our hearts, can resonate with that, say, oh, that's the truth, there it is, I found it, because before I couldn't find it, right? But then the masses point to that and go, oh, there it is, that's the truth, you know. But if we don't carry that, then it's hard for people to see who's right, you know, with all of this. Okay, so let's just dedicate the merit. So coming into the meditative posture one more time. And we dedicate the merit, so the goodness, through coming together like this, or meditation practice. Dedicating the merit means we offer up the goodness and the good karma, not only to ourselves, but just like we were mentioning, to beings that are not here and they don't have access to these types of teachings. So may all the goodness, all the wisdom, the love, the kindness, the compassion, the insights, the togetherness, the camaraderie, may the fruition of this time together, may it connect with the hearts and minds of all beings everywhere. May all beings, without exception, may they all be happy, truly, truly happy, and free from suffering. Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone online.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Tasha's cat. See you.